This is how everything's going to sound if you want to use this phone to make or take phone calls. We're going to set it down and talk. I'm going to step a little bit further back because maybe you want to record a lecture or things like that. Hey everyone, today in this video, I'm going to be checking out the Samsung Galaxy A13. If you're interested in this phone or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. They do make multiple versions of this phone. They have a 5G version and an LTE version. This is the LTE version right here. The specs are as follows: 32 gigabytes of built-in storage that is expandable, 3 gigs of RAM, a 6.6-inch display, and up to 15 watts fast charging supported. I want to give a special shout out to Visible for providing us with this device to be able to make this video. If you're unfamiliar or haven't heard about Visible, let me tell you more. Visible by Verizon is a simpler way to do wireless for $30 a month. Yes, that includes taxes and fees. You can get unlimited talk, text, and data nationwide in the US on Verizon's 5G and 4G LTE network. Let's not forget about our unlimited hotspot at 5 megabits per second, built-in spam protection, and unlimited talk and text to our friends in Canada and Mexico. For $45 a month, you can choose the Visible Plus plan that features everything we just mentioned and more.
Wow.
You get 5G ultra wideband, premium network experience at 50 gigabytes, and additional international benefits, and a $10 a month savings on Verizon Home Internet. See our affiliate link in the video description for additional information. Now let's go ahead, open it up, and see what's inside. Here are all the contents. First up, we have our quick start guide and terms and conditions. This walks you through everything you need to know about your device, how to get it connected and set up, and then your terms, conditions, legal, and compliance information on the back side for you. Next, we have our SIM removal tool right here, just to pop out the SIM card tray and install your new SIM card. Next, you'll notice we have our white USB Type-C to USB Type-C cable. There is no charger included. And lastly, we have our Galaxy A13 phone. Let's look at this in more detail. Here's a look at the front of our Galaxy A13 with our hole punch camera up at the top and our beautiful 6.6-inch display. You'll have a 6.5-inch display if you have the 5G version. We'll look at it from the left side right here. You'll see our SIM tray up at the top. Very top of the device. Now we're looking at the other side with our control buttons and our power button right there. Very bottom has our headphone jack and USB Type-C port with our speaker. And here's a look at the back side with Samsung's logo and branding. We have our cameras and sensors right there. Nice glossy, plasticky finish to the phone. Now let's go ahead, let's power it on and try it out. All right, so here's the first boot with our device. Take a look at that beautiful display. Looks very nice. This is all default, all stock right here. The only difference you'll see is, depending on your location, different weather and time. You'll notice front and center we have competing apps, Samsung's apps and Google apps. And we have Google apps bundled right there. And you'll notice we have Microsoft apps as well. So there is some bloatware. I'll use that sparingly. Experience, though, very similar as you'd expect. We can swipe over here. That's going to be our news option if you have that set up. Then we can pull up from the bottom. Let's take a look at the rest of the apps here. We got Samsung apps as well. Let's go back. And you'll see everything else that was pre-installed. Spotify came right out of the box, Netflix, Facebook, their internet browser, moving right along, YouTube Music and voicemail. The only apps we installed are in this subfolder right here. I wanted to keep them organized and out of the way for you guys to know exactly how it's going to look and what's going to come on the phone right out of the box. So it gives you a nice idea there of what's going to be included for you. Now let's talk about storage right out of the box. Before I downloaded any apps myself, I went ahead, I captured a screen grab after all of the updates were completed. And out of our 32 gigabytes of internal storage, 13.84 gigabytes or 43% is already used. Most of that going to the system, as you'll see in the breakdown right there. So you'll have 19, 20-ish gigabytes of usable space, which is why it's great that we have the option to expand our storage. Now let's talk about biometrics. So with this phone, we can unlock the phone with our face and our fingerprints. So the fingerprint sensor's right here on the side. Watch what happens. Boom, super quick, near instantaneous. It's done a great job recognizing my thumbprint all the time. I really like that location and placement right there. That's tough for me. I also liked the back position on the Pixel phones, but that's nice too. That's pretty sleek. So we have that option. Again, we can just use our thumb, unlock it just like so. We also have the ability to unlock it with our face. You'll notice, maybe you see the camera's thinking up there. It's trying to unlock it by scanning and looking for a face. Obviously, it didn't see anything right there. So let's try to do our face unlock right here. And we got it. And then we can just swipe up. So sometimes that's hit or miss for me. I like the reliability of the fingerprint sensor, so I'm glad they gave us both options. Just make sure you scan your face and take a really good photo. That should help improve the chances of it being more accurate. I didn't do that. I did not take a great photo and had a lot of kind of stuff and light in the way, but it still unlocks it for me. I'd say, let's try again. So usually it's kind of like every other time I feel like it gets it. But it got it, 2 in a row right there. So when it does work, it works great. Maybe it's just my face. Now let's talk about specs, and specifically, let's compare it with the averages across some of the other Samsung A series devices, the devices that we have had our hands on, which are as follows: the A03s and the A53. That's the averages we'll be comparing this phone with. So first up, battery capacity, 5,000 milliamp hours. The average across the board is 5,000 milliamp hours. Next, in regards to fast charging, this features support for 15-watt fast charging, the average being 18 watts. Next, there's no wireless charging for this phone. In regards to storage, 32 gigabytes built-in storage that is expandable. So this is kind of a moot point, but the average being 64 gigabyte with the other A series devices that we've reviewed. In regards to RAM, this has 3 gigabytes of RAM built in, the average being 4 gigabytes. Now, in regards to cameras, we have multiple cameras, a front-facing and rear-facing cameras. In regards to the front-facing camera and its megapixel count, we have 8 megapixels for the front-facing camera, the average being 15. For the rear camera, the main camera on the back, the megapixel count is 50, with our average being 42. So we're actually above average in that category. Multiple CPUs used across the different SKUs, but we went ahead, we calculated the core count and the speeds. So 8 cores for the CPU inside of this device, the average being 8 across the board. In regards to speed, this has a 2 gigahertz processor, the average being 2.25, so just a little bit slower. In regards to screen size, there actually are a couple different sizes for the screen, whether you get the LTE or the 5G version. This has a 6.6-inch display, the average being 6.5 inches, so slightly above board there. In regards to resolution, 1080 by 2408 for the spec. Now, refresh rate with this phone, 90 hertz, the average being 90, so we're right within the range right there. Talking about brightness, 500 nits for the brightness, with the average being 566 nits, so just a little bit below. Next up, there's no IP rating for this device, so it's in your best interest not to get it wet. And lastly, in regards to weight, this weighs 195 grams, the average being 193 grams. So technically, this guy's heavy, but really you're not gonna be able to tell the difference between our lightest phone, 189 grams, which is gonna be the A53, and our heaviest phone, which is the A03s at 196 grams. Next up, let's take a look at some benchmarks to see how this phone performs against the competition, maybe even your phone. First up, we have our Geekbench 5 score right here. We're showing a single core score of 156 and a multi-core score of 580. Let's compare that to some popular and similar devices. So at the top of the single core benchmarking chart, we have the OnePlus 11 followed by the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4. Check out those scores, 1241. Ours wasn't even above 200. So we got to scroll pretty far down on this list to see what nearby devices we have. So with our score of 156, we match the HTC One M8 and the Samsung Galaxy A12. The Galaxy S5 comes in a little bit higher, the Duos version. The LG V10 up at the top, the Galaxy Tab S 10.5, the Note Pro 12.2. Galaxy S5 down here. Xiaomi S2, Mi 4S, Note 3, Note Edge, OnePlus One. So you get the idea where it's going to come in performance-wise. For our multi-core score, we got a score of 580. Up at the top, we have our OnePlus 11 again at 4765. That thing is blazing fast. We have the Z Fold 4 and the Flip 4 coming in at the 3rd and 4th slots. A lot more OnePlus devices in the top 10. Let's go look at the phones around 580. At 580, we have the Galaxy Tab A and the ZTE Max XL. A couple of Sony phones. A lot of ZTE and HTC phones nearby. The OnePlus 2. Motorola Z Play. Asus Zenfone 2. Xiaomi Note 2. So many different phones, a lot of different options nearby. A couple of LG phones, Galaxy Note 4, HTC One A9. So these phones really cover a wide variety and range of models and years. And clearly the score can be really low or really high. Next benchmark is in 2.2 benchmark. We got a score of 1278.95. Let's look at those results. And you'll see a breakdown. For our CPU, we got a score of 3491.3. For our GPU, we got a score of 2522.9. For our memory, we got a score of 3329.8. And our UX with a score of 3445.5 on Android 13. Let's see how that stacks up with the competition. Looking at our rankings for Android phones, check this out. The top 3 devices, pretty substantial rankings here. The X90 Pro Plus takes the top spot. Asus Zenfone 9 in the 5th slot. Our first Samsung device coming in at number 9, the Galaxy Z Fold 4. And then we have slots 16, 17, and 18, our Samsung Galaxy S22 devices. And then our score is way down at the bottom. You can see out of the top 100 devices, we're still at 4791.53 at the bottom, and we're at 1278.95. So we are way down the list. Next test, I just wanted to show you how responsive the phone is by actually opening up some apps. So here's the Galaxy Store, the Play Store, the camera. Let's open up some things like LinkedIn. Now keep in mind, we've never opened that app before on the phone. So that might be a good gauge for you. There we go. Should be faster now if we open it again. Yep. Since we haven't exited out of it. Let's go grab YouTube Music. Not bad. Let's do our internet browser from Samsung. See if we can pull up Chrome really quick. No big deal. We have our messages here in our phone. So not bad. We have quite a few apps open now on our device. Pretty fluid and responsive. And lastly, thanks to our friends at Visible, we have a Visible SIM popped into the phone and I conducted a speed test. Now, please, please, please keep in mind that the results you see will vary dramatically depending on time of day, network congestion. There's just so many variables. What I want you to know and take away from this test is to see, am I going to be able to make it through day by day, streaming all of my favorite content, having access to everything I want within the internet on the go? And if we look at our results with our 4G LTE network, we are on Verizon's network. It's Visible by Verizon if you're unfamiliar. Here's the results that we got. Ping of 36, upload of 27, download of 120. Tested it on a variety of apps from web browsing to navigation to Netflix, so movie streaming, Spotify if you want to stream just audio music, YouTube you want some video, and then Zoom, right? If you got to do some work, everything is going to come back with the best score. You get the awesome score, and you're not going to have any issues at all using the 4G LTE on this phone. At least I can speak from my experience with Visible's network, but you should be in good hands regardless of the network that you use. Now we're testing out the built-in mic quality on our Samsung Galaxy A13. This is how everything's gonna sound if you wanna use this phone to make or take phone calls. Maybe you want to record some audio notes, voice memos, things like that. This is what you can expect in regards to the audio quality. Just for fun, I'm gonna bring it further out here. We're gonna talk directly into it. We're gonna set it down and talk. I'm gonna step a little bit further back, because maybe you want to record a lecture or things like that. But anyways, this is your A13 raw mic audio test. Thanks for listening. Next up, it's time to test out the built-in speaker quality on the A13. I'm going to do that by playing a couple of seconds of the song Kingdom Move by Music Chef. Music Chef is home to stream-safe music for content creators. You can find them on any streaming platform. So let's go ahead. Let's push play. We got max volume. Let's listen in. Now we're gonna switch it up and play a hip-hop beat, again from Music Chef. The song's called Dripping with Ice. So listening to that audio, hopefully you can decide for yourself if it's good enough for you. I think at this price point, you're not going to be disappointed with the speaker quality in this phone. So it's not something I would knock against it for the price that you're paying. In fact, I think it sounds better than I was anticipating, just because they got to make compromises somewhere to keep costs low. And typically that's one area where you're going to find some cost-cutting measures. Now let's talk about the display for a minute. I want to show you our display settings here first and foremost. You can learn how to navigate. A couple of key settings to go over. We have our light and dark mode adjustments. We have our brightness. We can turn adaptive brightness on. And you'll notice we don't have any other options right here to adjust refresh rate or anything else along those lines. So we're going to be fixed at a 90 hertz refresh rate for this phone. So let's go ahead, let's test it out with some web browsing. First up, you're looking at The Verge, a popular tech blog. We're just gonna move our finger back quickly so you can get a feel for the movement and motion as we're scrolling. Do some fast swipes. So fast it's not gonna load everything quick enough. But when it does load, get a feel for that movement and motion with the display. Very fluid. My eyes are pretty accustomed to 60 hertz, so 60, 90, 120. When you look at animations, there is a noticeable difference. It isn't as sputtery, but it's hard for my eyes to tell. What my eyes can tell is that this doesn't bother me at all from my experience browsing and moving around. Next, it's the YouTube trending section. Try to load some different content again. Moving it back and forth. Our endless scrolling. Let's get some more to load. Woo, that's a lot. All right, and then we'll scroll back up. Up, still too quick. You get the idea. Definitely enjoyable looking at this display. Samsung does a really nice job. I love how their screens look. Next, I want to talk about the camera. We'll look at some samples here in a second. I just want to walk through a couple of the quick camera settings. So we have the camera app opened up right here. You'll notice we have a portrait mode, our photo, our video mode, and we have a more section here that'll give us a couple of different options. We have a pro mode, panorama, food, and macro, depending on what we're trying to capture. Keep in mind, depending on the mode that you're in, you might have some settings grayed out. So in regards to video, we can choose our aspect ratio. We also have a couple different options here. We have full HD 30 or 720p 30, no 4K, and we have a 0.5 all the way to 10x for our zoom. With some additional settings we can select in the top left-hand corner. Grid lines, shooting methods, settings to keep. We can reduce file size. And then photo, it's going to be the same, 0.5 all the way up to 10. We can adjust our aspect ratio here. We have a little enhancement if you want to add some filters up at the top. And then portrait, it's going to be the same thing for photo. We can adjust the effect strength. Let's go to regular photo. We'll look at the settings again. You'll see, just like the video settings, some are now going to be enabled, some aren't. But you'll notice we don't have any extra stabilization, no 4K or anything along those lines with the camera. Now let's look at some photo and video samples. I'm walking down the steps and we're capturing video right now without steady mode on, and we'll walk around. Now I'm recording video walking down the steps with steady mode on, and you'll be able to see a noticeable difference in the movement and motion as we're walking around. Also, if you are going to use that motion option, it is going to change the quality to full HD, so you'll only get 1080p instead of 4K, so keep that in mind. But that's what we're doing right here, and it's a lot smoother as we're walking around. Now we're sampling the front-facing camera at 4K. This is what it's going to look like if you're going to use this to capture some video. We're walking around right here, just holding the camera in our hand. It's a nice overcast and cloudy day, so I think the lighting's just about perfect for this camera right now. So everything looks really nice. We're not like in direct sunlight, overexposed or anything like that. Now let me share with you my final thoughts in regards to the A13. First thing I want to say is I really like this phone in regards to the different versions that they have. I'm not going to say I don't like it because it's not 5G, because there is a 5G version of this phone. We happen to have the 4G LTE version that has dual SIM, which is really cool. And for some of you out there, you'll really appreciate having that feature. And it's expandable, so you can always expand the storage, which is nice. Now, with the unibody design and construction, I don't think there's going to be a way for you to easily get in there and try to repair or swap out batteries. It's not going to be removable. Other than that, I want to point out that the display is really nice on this phone. I'm not sure the video does it justice, but it's really enjoyable to look at the screen, which is important if you have that dual SIM and you're going to be on it all day. 5,000 milliamp hour battery is a nice touch as well. They didn't skimp there. Other than that, they gave us some flagship features, right? We have an ultra-wide lens, a nice rear camera packed full of a lot of megapixels, so really well thought out. Now, with all that being said, there are some things I'd want to see improved or changed in the device in the future. I'd love wireless charging. I'd like a better, maybe a couple extra gigs of RAM to really just help some of the experience of every once in a while I notice, let's say I open an app, I got to wait like an extra millisecond for the keyboard to come up. Maybe if you're coming from a similar device, you wouldn't notice, but for me, coming from flagship phones, it does feel like there's just a slight delay every once in a while. It's not all the time. Or like when it boots up for the first time after a restart, things like that. It just feels a little sluggish and slow. Almost kind of like it has to get warmed up, and then it's in a rhythm and it's good to go. And there's no NFC. Did I mention wireless charging? I'd love to have some of those added in the future, assuming that it wouldn't drastically increase the price point or things along those lines. Lastly, there's no IP rating for this, so I wouldn't say it's the most durable phone. It's definitely in your best interest not to get it wet.